SJ, Stone Go, Gary 5 Javo Jifkidos, Mvskoke Radio, Mamo Hedgewinskis, and joining me in the studio,
Angel Ellis, reporter Mvskoke Media.
First of all, we have Mr. Jason Salsman, pinch hitting for our principal chief at Hill. Wants to talk about some of the issues facing our leadership. Good morning, Jason. Thanks for pinch hitting for the chief. We sure appreciate it.
Good morning, Gary and Angel both. Thanks for having me, and glad to be here. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm not the chief. I'm sorry. I got to be pinch hitting, like he said, but I couldn't even make the Times honorable mention list. So you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel today. But no, I keep up with everything that he's doing communication-wise, and as still acting as his press secretary for all of the ins and outs, and basically confirming a lot of what you guys have talked about here just now. Those are all things that we already discussed, so I'm ready to go.
Okay, well, let's should we hit him with a softball first?
Jason's kind of seasoned. We can dive on it.
Okay.
Whatever, you just pick it out of a hat.
Did the chief go to Tahlequah because Barr, the AG, the Attorney General, is there?
Yeah, no, he did not go to Tahlequah. We didn't find out about the meeting till midday, late day yesterday, actually. And that's unfortunate. And it's not anything where we're going to get in the mud and blame anyone or anything like that. We have a great working relationship with the U.S. Attorney in the Northern District, Mr. Trent Shores. He's been an advocate for our fight for sovereignty and helping us. And his office has certainly taken on a lot of work. And his office is not to speak for them, but their main issue with speaking with Attorney General Barr is to get Department of Justice help and Department of Justice aid, funding for his office. Bodies, yes. Soldiers, feet on the ground, whatever you want to call it. Getting help for his office, getting help for Light Horse Police, getting help for the Mvskoke Creek Nation Attorney General's office through grant funding and the Department of Justice and everything like that.
We've seen the tribe kind of get some of that grant funding, and I think that the U.S. Attorney's Office has kind of advocated for that, especially knowing the climate going on with McGirt becoming a decision. And we also have a Mvskoke Creek citizen as a tribal liaison in that office, Shannon Kazoni, who started out here at the tribe and has, been working there. They report out every month the indictments that they are doing right now that have charges, in Indian country. We've seen this shift from an indictment that says, Oklahoma statute, whatever the crime is. But now when you look at their indictments, it's a list of charges that have also Oklahoma statute combined with crime in Indian country. It might be theft or murder or, arson, and it's classified as, murder in Indian country. So that's a big, huge shift for, I'm sure Trent Shores' office, the Eastern District as well. And in the last month, I think I counted up well over 160 cases that are going through their thing. What's the climate like for Mvskoke Creek Nation? We're having a little bit harder time tracking the cases that come through tribal court because, for one, COVID, and it has our, courts operating a little bit differently. But what is it like for our Attorney General? Roger Wiley, is he kind of seeing the same influx of cases that U.S. attorneys are seeing?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of cases. In the coverage, this is what I told somebody about it the other day. It's like the coverage has been so simplistic and so number-centric. Everybody wants, what are the number of cases? What are the number? We knew that it would be more cases. It's a lot of work. It's hard work to protect and uphold the sovereignty of the Mvskoke Reservation. They're taking on more cases. They're working through it. I don't think a number of cases gives you a greater idea of just how much work they're taking on. I don't have an actual number right this moment, but I know that the Attorney General's office is taking on a lot of the cases that you see that, like we said, if it has to deal with a native on the reservation, a non-native against a native on the reservation. A little plug here for our FAQs page on the website. We have a little, I guess you could call it a chart there that tells you exactly how these things break down. And you could imagine there's a lot of cases. I mean, before this came along, this has kind of opened my eyes to how many people in Oklahoma in our area really just can't deal and can't abide by the law.
Yeah.
A lot of law breaking going on out there. It's amazing to me that there's so many people that get in situations where they're breaking the law or where they're doing something. You know, there's something every day where it comes up and I see something on the news, something's going on, and my mind immediately goes to, oh, I hope they're not Indian, and I hope they're not on the Creek Reservation. You know what I mean? But that's the reality.
Poke this into it. Some of the news coverage is sort of alluded to, dangerous criminals being turned loose on the streets, that our system just has not evolved or was not prepared to deal with these. And, you've got these dangerous folks, wandering around out there. And the phrase cheap shot comes to my mind. But, do you have anything there on that's their... in response to it, so to speak? I mean, these people are not walking the streets.
Well, yeah, and that's way overblown, of course. And my thing on that is that we need to get better communication from those agencies, those courts, and those LEOs to our people. That's what we're hearing right now is a breakdown of, hey, let's just hold this person until we can get them transferred, whatever. And if there's a statute of limitations, we can work through that as well and find discovery, find, what's in the tribal code, everything like that. But if we just have people throwing their hands up, if we have law enforcement officers out there getting to the scene of even a speeding ticket or just something very small here in town and go, oh, are you Indian? Oh, you are? Okay, I'm out of here. Not even wait for Light Horse to get there or anything like that. There is a process, and our Assistant Attorney General took part in a roundtable with the U.S. Attorney's Office, Mr. Kyle Haskins, talking about the fact that you have to do more than just ask, when you're vetting Native American citizenship. Or even a red tag. You can't just see a red tag and say, oh, that's a Light Horse problem. So those are things that, we're needing to get better communication from the ground up, even at the scene, but to also to the different courts, to the different Attorney General's office, DA offices, whatever, with Mvskoke Creek Nation. I talked with a reporter the other day about a specific case where they said, this individual is worried about this case that could be dropped because of McGirt. What do? They're worried about this person. They're scared of this person. This was actually two females. And so there's a family member. We're scared of this person getting out. What do we do? And it's as simple as, our Attorney General responded with, it's as simple as obtaining a protective order from Mvskoke Creek Nation Court. If you're scared of someone, that will hold through till the case is transferred and into the right courts. So there are processes in place to make sure that people feel safe in an instance where maybe we have to switch courts or switch this case from here to here. But I think the notion that there's just lawlessness and people walking the streets that are the cases getting dropped every day from murderers and things like that, I think that's way overblown and just simply not true.
Well, you know what? One of the big distinct differences that I've started looking at, I've been trying to track these indictments that are coming from the U.S. Attorney's Office. One of the big changes that I'm starting to see is in the last 30 days, I've seen more indictments on rape, molestation of, Indigenous women than I've ever seen come through the federal courts, ever. And I think I counted them up the other day, and there was something like 27 different, it was either like a minor, child molestation, or it was a violent sexual crime against a female. And we haven't seen the federal, court system picking those charges up like they should have been. And it really kind of makes me wonder in my mind if we might start seeing, because of this SCOTUS opinion, maybe we start seeing something here in Oklahoma that absolutely could positively affect missing and murdered and Indigenous women. If we start seeing them prosecuting these violent sexual crimes, these rapes, molestations, because those were things in the past I don't think we've seen prosecuted before. They might have been left to the state, and for whatever reason, on the state level, it was an often really ignored problem. So in the beginning, when you start looking at a massive overhaul of a justice process, they can kind of put out these numbers. And like you said, the numbers aren't always accurate, because what I'm starting to see in the very beginning, it was hundreds of cases are blah, 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 and because of SCOTUS. Well, maybe for the last several years, they were prosecuted wrong. And these are going to be cases that have to be prosecuted because of the incorrect process. They were never free people, but they are now getting tried in the proper format, such as McGirt and Murphy, because both of those have been re-indicted in the federal courts. Right. And we're going to see those cases, and it's going to inflate the numbers in the beginning. And what you can't really kind of set a trend on is that beginning, for the last 20 years, I've done my taxes wrong. Am I really charged a lot of taxes? Well, maybe to get caught up I am. But once I start doing it properly, then it levels out and it looks differently in data. So the data can skew here, especially as we're watching, the processes get put in place and done correctly. I just wanted to kind of throw that out there.
And I think that's kind of what lends itself to the point I was making earlier. You really can't just go in numbers because, like I said, even we've seen with the COVID-19 crisis, it depends on from one week to the next which numbers you believe or which numbers are correct. We've heard different stories from different agencies on how numbers are calculated, everything like that. Not to make it seem like that's what's going on with this, but you're right. You bring up a great point in the fact that the numbers are counted in ways that make it seem like a huge problem, when in reality it just needs to sort of settle down, do things the right way. As I said, nobody and none of these agencies that are covering this news-wise are saying that the state has been acting illegally for over 100 years. That's our assertion. Now, it is what it is, and now we must work to fix that, get the ship righted, and assert our sovereignty, assert our jurisdiction. But again, the snap of a fingers, there's no way that you could prepare and bolster departments and budgets on a conditionality. And nobody was going, hey, let's pump in $20 million to our Lighthorse and AG's office in case McGirt turns out favorably. There's no way you can do that. So that's why we're exploring every option now and doing what we can now in increments. You've seen $2 million plus to the Lighthorse Police Department out of our own pocket. That didn't come from a grant. That didn't come from the Department of Justice, anything like that. We're thankful for the $500,000 plus that went to the Attorney General's office. We got a new team of prosecutors, excited about that. But we'll take any help we can get right now, whether it comes from us, whether it comes from the Department of Justice, the BIA, whatever. Those are the things that are going to take incrementally to make sure that we get this thing the way it should be.
Is there a code or a procedure or protocol being developed or in place that would kind of solve some of these problems? Is it still evolving? Or?
Yeah, and that's a large portion of the work of the Mvskoke Creek Nation, the Mvskoke Reservation Protection Commission. There are specific subcommittees on that commission that are dealing with looking letter for letter through tribal code and fixing inconsistencies, closing gaps, making sure that tribal code lines up the way that it should with our new reality. And have it the way that it's going to be comparable to charges and things like that in state courts, federal courts. A lot of the things done structurally by the federal government, though, has hamstrung tribal courts to be able to properly, punish and sentence people for crimes committed in Indian country. This is part of a lot greater of a broken system than just that's going to be a quick, we fixed it and let's move on. It's been 100+ years of a broken system, and that's led to jurisdictional gaps. That's led to less Mvskoke Creek and all Native women not getting justice for being the victims of violence or being the victims of murder and all kinds of things like that.
the state statutes for violent crimes against women are actually much lower. Like the punishment and sentencing is than, like, say, VAWA and things on the federal level. So it's like the tribal, pursuit and avenues have always been much harder and more protective of women than even like a citizen of Oklahoma. Like, I'm kind of like, as a citizen of the Mvskoke Creek Nation, I'm like, I wish that my neighbor who is not Creek could enjoy the same protections that I could, because that's kind of, something that's like your own government in the state doesn't see you as valuable as my tribe sees me as a person. And that's kind of really alarming at sometimes. Can you kind of give us some insights? One of the big calls, and this shifts gears a little bit to something that's not really as important as, I think, protecting women, but to some people it is. Right now, in the state of Oklahoma, people can carry a medical marijuana card. They can purchase medical marijuana. And one of the big calls I keep getting as a reporter covering the Justice Beat is, I'm a Creek citizen, or I'm a tribal citizen of any tribe, and I'm on this reservation. Can they pick me up on a federal charge? Because the federal statutes still criminalize marijuana and do not allow for medical marijuana. Can you kind of give us any insights on, is the commission looking at things like that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the commission, one of their main things that they're working on right now urgently is the marijuana question and getting some clarity there. And we have one of the top marijuana lawyers in the state, if not the top marijuana lawyer in the state, Mr. Blake Johnson, is a Creek citizen. He's on the commission. He basically ushered in medical marijuana law in Oklahoma with Crow v. Dunleavy there in Oklahoma City, one of the top firms, not only in the state, but this country, and revolutionized the industry in Oklahoma by setting up sound policy and sound marijuana law and making sure that that was something that was in place before the influx of dispensaries, grow operations, everything like that. Those are things that aren't lost on the Mvskoke Creek Nation, definitely not on our citizens. We have citizens that have grow operations that do quite well. We have citizens that have medical marijuana cards that use marijuana as medicine and use the benefits of it for their health. And so I think for us, it became an important issue right off the bat with the Mvskoke Reservation Protection Commission, was making sure that there was a committee solely dedicated to that issue as something that was at the forefront. I know right now they don't have anything concrete as far as me to tell you this is what we're going to do about that, or this is the solution to that issue, but they're talking about it, and that is at the highest priority right now because of the immediacy of needing to get some clarity on that.
It's difficult to be in the limbo situation, because what can we get? What advice can we give the citizen who is, what I'm scared of and what I'm like hearing reports of is the identifiably Native person who may be leaving a dispensary could be picked up on a charge.
Yeah. And I think that's a little bit into that scare tactic stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't know that if you're, Native and, let's just say look like John Redcorn coming out of a dispensary, they're not going to jump on you and take you away to federal court. But I think that that's something that I think they know we just jumped into. We need time for clarity. That also pushes the necessity to get something clarified quickly, I think. So as far as an answer right now, don't have it. Hate that in my profession, not have an answer right now. But that's the same thing with a lot of this McGirt and Supreme Court decision. We just don't. We're working through it, trying to get, as we said, we know that the decision provided ultimate clarity, right? This is the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
This is the way it never was supposed to be disestablished from, or whatever.
Well, thank you for not slipping into the PR isms there.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I'm glad you asked that.
No, there is uncertainty, but I don't think it's sky is falling uncertainty. I think it's opportunity. I think it's a chance to get it figured out and make it better.
Let's switch gears for a little bit. We've had court decisions on the gaming compact saying, nope, Governor, you can't have that. Nope.
There was a great song about Henry VIII that said second verse, same as the first, I believe. And I, with the gaming compacts, To us, it was a simple black and white letter of the law issue that we don't feel ever should have had to been litigated and cost the Oklahoma state taxpayers millions of dollars. And it's unfortunate that it came to that whenever we could have just said, hey, and what was really unfortunate is when we saw the first dismissal, well, then we had others come out, and it's like, why? This is going to be the same application. It's going to be the same rules that we follow here, which is the law, And so for all of us, it was a sort of not a ha-ha moment, because we're not going to be, we're not going to be adversarial. We weren't in the get-go. We're not going to be adversarial now. We're here to work, but at the same time, we won't be pushed around either or made to feel like what we're doing is on the other side of the law, isn't ethical, isn't fair to Oklahoma. We heard that a lot. This isn't fair to Oklahoma, which we laugh at because we provide $2.5 billion to the Oklahoma economy collectively as tribes. And I think what you saw there, Gary, it was in the campaign against that push of, right, from the governor's perspective, respectfully, their push was, this is not fair. The Oklahoma people are getting a raw deal from tribes. What they did not count on, and I don't have any idea how they didn't see this, was how many of the rural Oklahoma people feel every day of their life the impact of tribal nations in their communities, what they mean to their schools, what they mean to their roads, what they mean to their infrastructure, what they mean to jobs in some of these places. I don't think that they counted on those people going, well, you can't sell us that bill of goods. You're not going to get us to believe that the tribes aren't being fair to Oklahoma. We love the tribes. We count on the tribes. That's not a partisan. The tribal issues in Oklahoma and tribal impact in Oklahoma is not a partisan issue. It's not a Republican or Democrat thing. We have people like Speaker Charles McCall of the House of Representatives in Oklahoma that recognize and value the impact of tribes. The Choctaw Nation very much thriving in his home community of Atoka in that area. And you've seen Atoka grow exponentially. And you've seen those areas in Southeast, and he sees that. He knows that. He's just one person, though.
That question one step further there. At the beginning of this, let's just delicately call it disagreement, it looked like there was a potential for a real schism between tribal governments who are asserting their inherent powers versus a governor trying to, let's say, make a name for himself. And in spite of, for all Oklahoman kind of thing, he was, on the other side of the fence very, very clearly.
Right.
Is that going to go any further? Is things going to worsen, or are we working on working together?
I think we've seen other tribal leaders say as much too, but I think from the chief's perspective, we don't feel that the relationship is broken. We feel like maybe the relationship has taken a couple punches in this first couple rounds, and it's kind of time to sit on the stool, get a drink of water, maybe, and regroup a little bit and come back out and work together. I think that for us, as I said again, it was never adversarial on our part. It seemed like on the other side of things, it almost began with an air of adversarial conflict, or this is I'm going after the tribes, or we're gonna make sure the tribes are paying their fair share, or something like that. And on our end, we just wanted to talk. We just wanted to have conversation. I know that I'm with the principal chief every single day, and I believe the first conversation that we ever had between him and the governor was well into maybe May or June. I have to go back and kind of catalog all my days. They run together a little bit, guys. But
that brings up a question for me. The first conversation between Chief and the governor, I believe I seen on Chief's social that it came after the state of Oklahoma started pushing this agreement in principle.
Yes.
So can you kind of give us any insight onto that? That agreement in principle was like this massive thing that freaked everyone out. Yeah. And it made us all wonder, like, did Chief have any conversation with that? Was he ever at the table negotiating that?
No, Chief Hill never once talked to Attorney General Mike Hunter, and never once talked to Governor Kevin Stitt or anybody involved in that agreement in principle, all the way leading up to its announcement. And not that he never talked to Mike Hunter before. I think they had maybe a hello, how are you? I'm Chief Hill, I'm Council Representative Hill at like a function before, but never in a diplomatic stage between Chief and Oklahoma AG, Chief, Oklahoma Governor. There was no conversation. So that was a big part of the, hey, let's take a pause and step back. We're not putting our stamp on this because we're hearing from him. This has gone on 2 years. I've only been chief for 5 months and I haven't talked to you once.
It felt to me a little bit like when your son, you see on Facebook that his girlfriend announces they're moving in together, and your son doesn't know about it. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it felt like.
Okay, let's toss that softball at him now. We just seen news about Time Magazine and 100.
Nice to have a softball.
Yeah, what was Chief Hill's reaction?
I think Chief Hill is just a humble guy, and sort of that's something that's part of his really charm, and I think that draws people to him. The same thing that drew Nightline to him, to have a national feature on him and his family. He comes from humble roots. He comes from a humble beginning and somebody that worked hard his whole life and built himself up at a company and became a made man when he got to a position to where, he created a wonderful life for his family. And then he decided, hey, I don't know why he decided this. I need to go back and ask him what he was thinking, but he said, I think I'll get into tribal politics.
Boy, yeah. Let's
decided
get punched in the face.
Give a run at the council seat and became a council member for a long time.
Have you seen the latest edition?
Oh, yeah, the Mvskoke News. I got to tell you, Mvskoke Media, that is a beautiful cover. I can't wait for people to get that in their newsstands, in their homes, and some folks, hey, we're talking about tribal politics. Some folks might use it as a dartboard, but those of us that are around him every single day, we love Chief Hill. We understand the enormous pressure and amount of stress that he's under leading the tribe in such a tumultuous year. It's been a grand year, but it's also been tough. And so to see him every single day, keep his resolve, stay steady, in the face of sometimes criticism, sometimes really tough decisions, sometimes great victories. To see him keep that steady hand and his personality never waver and remain the same throughout all of that is pretty impressive, and it's a joy to go to work for him every day. But when he was announced as a Time 100, very deflective. He didn't like the attention for himself. He wanted to make sure that it was the Mvskoke Creek Nation as a whole, every citizen, every employee, every healthcare worker, every person that came through the Trail of Tears, all of our ancestors, a collection of Mvskoke history and people that brought us to this great moment.
Thanks,
Fantastic.
Jason, for being with us.
But,
Appreciate it.
Thanks you guys for having me. I appreciate it. I'm sorry I had to step in for Chief.